my name is Shelby Williams, and today I have the honor of introducing Virginia Skipworth. If you know Virginia, you've probably heard her too, as she only texts and voice memos. In fact, I got one this morning about bringing her charger back to her. Virginia, I'll bring it tomorrow. But I've known Virginia as the kind and funny friend who stuck with me through the thick and thin, also known as our Ole Miss trip last weekend. Now, I won't keep you waiting any longer, so today I present to you the Virginia Russell Skipworth. I have stolen everything from my older sister. Her clothes, her music taste, her mannerisms, even her goals. So, when she decided she wanted to visit all 50 states before her 21st birthday, I copied that as well. With 9 months until her 21st birthday, she suggested a quick road trip to Maine for the weekend. As I learned more about this trip, I realized just what I had committed to. Obviously, I couldn't say no. So, my dad, brother, sister, and I clambered into a tiny Honda and mentally prepared for the 15 hours we would drive on day one. This was a day full of the positivity that can only coincide with the beginning of a trip, and heavily influenced by the Quest for Maine playlist that quickly became the soundtrack of our drive. When we arrived in Erie, Pennsylvania, a little worn from the 15 hours, we were ready for sleep we needed before we would be back on the road at 6 a.m. 6 o'clock came and went, because in Wilkes' meticulous planning, she forgot one thing, changing her watch with the time zone. By the time we were on the road, everyone was tired, unhappy, and behind schedule. As we headed into New York, Wilkes suggested we stop at Niagara Falls and drive into Canada. It was an easy choice because, in her words, it just adds 10 minutes. After our quick detour, we were back on track to arrive in Maine for an early dinner. As we drove through Schenectady, New York, Wilkes suggested we stop at an apple orchard. It would probably only take 10 minutes to pick some apples. We began by wandering around the rows and picking apples before we split off on our own. From across the orchard, I heard my father shout, "Autumn crisp! They have autumn crisp!" By the time we were back in the car, my seat suddenly felt much smaller as the back seat was crowded by pounds of apples. We had 4 hours until Maine, now with the hope that anywhere would be open for dinner that late. As we neared, I asked if we were getting lobster rolls for dinner, even though no one in my family eats seafood. There was no need for this discussion, though, as Ornell's Barbecue was the only place open. I ended up eating the best barbecue of my life in Kittery, Maine. We officially began our drive home the next day, starting in Boston, when I suggested we visit the house where Little Women was filmed. And Wilkes replied, "We were already headed in that direction, and it was only 10 minutes out of the way." We were never meant to drive through New York City, but as we neared, the obvious option was to go down FDR Drive because, well, it only added 10 minutes. Of course, because we were already in the city, it made sense to stop for lunch. We decided on the original Nathan's hot dog at Coney Island, which was only a little over an hour and a half away from where we were in Manhattan. We planned to just spend 10 minutes walking down the boardwalk. In 3 days, we visited 14 states, traveled 3,000 miles, and made memories that will last more than 10 minutes. When I got home that night, I put on one of my favorite movies. When I watched it for the first time in second grade, I knew I had found my senior quote. In the wise words of Ferris Bueller, "It's a little childish and stupid, but then so is high school." So since it is high school, chase a bear, go to football games, take trips, especially to New York, start a podcast, Oreo cars, spend as much time as possible in the Whole Foods parking lot, go to Huey's every chance you get, always have Slumbees, see the same movie 9 times in theaters and cry every time, say yes to babysitting, always commit to costumes, save the back of receipts for pro-con lists, go to Chicago in the middle of winter and stand in line at 4 a.m., play fishbowl, stop by Chick-fil-A just for an ice cream cone, go to a square dance, play What Are the Odds, only send voice memos, and have all the best conversations parked in your friends' cars because, hey, it only adds 10 minutes.